You're listening to the A to Z of Human Performance live show weekdays at 13:30 GMT with Chris Lissaman and resident expert Jonna Sercombe. Please enjoy responsibly. Well, back in the groove. It is Monday, and I'm joined by the star of the show, our wonderful host, Chris, new haircut Lissaman.
Yeah, back for Monday with a new haircut. It's pretty much all you can do in lockdown, really, isn't it? It's cut your own hair. There's not much else.
Very sharp. In fact, maybe even slimmer because of the height of the hair.
Yeah, I'm more aerodynamic.
So
look, faster run times in. It's episode 11, Jonna. We're more than halfway through the weekdays of January. Can you believe that?
Can't believe it.
We're rattling through the year already, 2021. And we're back with the show. The show goes on. We've got 10 more shows, including this one, to go in the rest of the month. And I'm a host for each one. I'm Chris Lissaman, part of the Interactive Workshops team, and I'm joined by Jonna again today. Jonna, how are you doing?
Resident expert.
You are our resident expert.
I've literally grown roots because I'm completely resident. And a great hi to Anna, Hux and Frank as well. Welcome.
Yeah,
Thanks
Anna.
for the show. Emily Leake, good to see you there.
And all of our shows are available if you've missed any on our website, interactiveworkshops.com. And we're posting those on LinkedIn and they're on our YouTube channel, so you can subscribe so you don't miss a show. This week, we've got quite a lot coming up, Jonna. Killing with kindness is our intriguing topic today. Tomorrow, we're talking about latency.
The untapped potential.
Wednesday, motivation and mood music.
Soundtrack for life.
I think that's a very relevant one at the moment. Thursday, the triple header, nugatory, noise, and no.
Yeah. Distractions.
And Friday brings ownership, origination, and organizing.
There's a lot of letters in there. You can make some good words there.
And those all begin with O.
It's going to be a big week, but we start with the most important topic, don't we? Kindness.
Killing with kindness. That's intriguing. Jonna, being kind, that's an age-old mantra. Do we still need to talk about being nice?
We live in a nice time. I will say that. I was talking to a now retired business leader around 5 years ago about how he could get the best out of the people that worked in his big global organization. And he said along the lines, the thing about this generation is they're extremely soft because they haven't been to war. And, I guess let's start there. We live in nice times. We live in times. I was saying to my kids, you're saying that you're cold, but your grandfather, my father, had to scrape the ice off the inside of his window of his house. You're complaining about scraping off the car windscreen outside. But yeah, we live in some pretty special times, don't we? We've got, especially in the Western world, a lot of very nice things happening. We've got, so many positive things happening in the world, even things like the Cold War, which I think did shape a lot of people's psychology of always having a lurking enemy. We don't really have a lurking enemy anymore. But kindness is a very important strategy in order to achieve high performance.
Yeah, I think when you look at social media, when you look at something like Twitter, you see a lot of people not being nice, and then a lot of people talking about how we all need to be nice.
Yes, well, perhaps because we don't have a common enemy. If we had a common enemy, then we wouldn't be nasty to each other. But I think Twitter is the perfect example that without a common enemy to fight against, we have turned in on each other. And, you only need to read that book, Lord of the Flies, to see what happens if you have a society like that. And we see it in teams, don't we? If the team doesn't have a sufficiently stretching goal, or if the team's not aligned, then the team also turns in on each other and stops being kind. And so it might seem like a soft subject, but it's actually got some really important applications when it comes to how to achieve high performance.
Yeah, it is really important. And do you think it's actually quite underestimated, kindness, in the business world?
If you look at what makes a great team, then the base of that, as we know, is to trust each other. And you cannot trust people who are not kind to you, who are mean to you, who cut you down, or who, are being personal with criticism rather than keeping it professional. So yes, the 5 dysfunctions of a team, the base of that pyramid is trust. And to trust people, we've got to actually feel that they've got our back, that they're behind us, that they care about us in some way. Kindness is key to that.
And you, I know you wrote in our book Team by Team about how the support structures that form in those, even in the slight comments that perhaps aren't the most kind, but they're not unkind. You know, they're a bit of workplace banter.
I mean,
actually form the strongest structures.
Well, there's a great. I think we should differentiate very much between being polite and being kind. So if you look at, Cog's ladder as another kind of team development example, the first stage of that is polite. If you look at forming, norming, storming, performing, the first step of that, forming, people are very polite. So there's a big difference between politeness and kindness. And again, I think actually in forming high-performing teams, there's a lot of things that are too simplistic in the team building arena. You're exactly right. You know, if we're unfailingly and always polite with each other, we probably won't perform a high-performing team, because we need things like challenge and direct challenge at times. But also the highest performing teams trust each other enough that they can move even from politeness and kindness into, that humorous kind of challenge or dark humor. There was a brilliant article in the papers a few years ago by the top brigadier in the British Army who said his teams needed to perform at the highest level, and they were therefore, it was a military necessity that they included banter, mickey taking, teasing, and a whole variety of other behaviours. But if you look at people who really care about each other, many of those things are in play, provided that the counterpart is up for it. And I think if people are not up for it, then obviously it would be unkind and mean not to include to include those behaviours. So building that ecosystem, I think the highest performing teams have a great rapport and an ability to sometimes say even tough things that might even be true that are hurtful, and that is actually part of their kindness approach. Yeah,
absolutely. So we need that kindness as the base layer. Even if there's banter, there's jokes and things, we need that kindness as the base level, else we won't trust our team. How might then we be killing with kindness?
Well, killing with kindness is an ancient expression about killing your enemies with kindness. And I think the sort of examples are where people have done something that's against you. You could retaliate, but to be caring and to, pay them back double what you owe or whatever is a way to build, that's why it's killing them with kindness, because in the end their ego feels, how could they have been so mean when you're actually been so nice? So I think that ability to, give, to be kind and generous even to people that are against you is a revolutionary. And to take that approach actually makes you fairly unassailable as a person. And that's perhaps where we go into perhaps some of the more deeper psychological elements about how we're made up and how we operate in the world, and the levels of confidence and security we have. But I don't know, Chris, let's say that you owed me $5,000, but you couldn't repay it. I demonstrate a greater level of security and sense of my place in the world by writing off your debt and saying, don't worry about it, than if I send you letters of demand. So, being the bigger person in a relationship, being the person that can absorb difficult moments, or who can accept problems that come up. I think this is where we go into the more interesting space about what it means to be a high performer in relationships.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So to be a high performer, it might not necessarily be getting fairness out of a situation, but actually kindness could overtake that.
That's it. Fairness is a fairly weak form of relationship, isn't it? If everything's fair. But the truest forms of generosity and connection form when people go above and beyond. So trying to work on those strategies. I mean, let's say commercially, it's very valuable. A client relationship where a team goes above and beyond is extremely valuable. If a client relationship team only ever does what's fair, where's the client delight in that? So, this killing with kindness, going above and beyond. An example, we had an example in our business where a client made a mistake in their budgets for the year and came back to us and said, I know that we've contracted to spend this money with you, and it's actually my fault we've made this mistake. Can you repay us some money? Otherwise I'm going to be out of pocket in my budgets. And we thought about it and thought, you know what? Yeah, we can be the bigger person here. It's not something we would always do. It's not something we have to do. It's not something we need to do. It's not even something we want to do. But let's be the bigger person in this relationship and say, sure, okay, you've made the mistake, but we'll send you back some money. I mean, it's not really how the business world works, is it? But For individuals that, you want to build a strong relationship with, I don't think it hurts to, I think it's a very good thing to do, to be generous. But the most important times to be generous, and what tells about a character, is when things are difficult.
Yeah, so it's incredibly powerful to use kindness in our relationships. It's a really powerful thing to grow relationships.
Yeah.
Does that bring us on to talking about where tough love might be an appropriate action?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting expression, tough love, isn't it? This is the idea that to be kind to people in the bigger picture, we may need to be tough, or even very tough in the small picture. I have a friend, for example, whose late teenage son went off track and ended up trying to deal drugs from their kitchen table. And, should you kick that child out of home, for example, or should you ban their friends from coming in? Well, what should you do? So this is a kind of classic tough love situation. And hopefully we don't face too many of these, but we, on a micro level, we might have people that don't follow all our company's policies or don't play by the team culture. How do we challenge with integrity? Or as Emma says, how do we check and challenge? So check our ego, try and make sure it's not about us, and then challenge. But yeah, this tough love concept, I think, is helpful when it comes to kindness, to realise that often helping people in the short term doesn't help them in the long term. So, there's it's a kind of paradox. Like, we want to be kind, we want to be empathetic, we want to be generous, we want to be the bigger person. But sometimes to be kind in the big picture, we need to be challenging in the short term.
Yeah, I think I saw that when I joined interactive workshops in that first few months and year. The number of times you said, "I think you can handle this," and it wasn't unkind. You could have done the really kind thing or nice thing and said, "Oh, let me help you. Let me sit down with you and go through it." But that wouldn't have helped me grow in the way that it helped me grow when you said, "I think you can handle it," and it let me crack on with it.
Yeah,
and I was able to do it.
It's very, very sophisticated to try and work out how to make these judgment calls. And I guess that's what makes the highest performing people in management. So, if I handhold my team too much, I'm basically telling them implicitly, you can't do this.
Yeah, you haven't got this on your own.
You haven't got this on your own. You need me. If I support them too much, I'm saying you can achieve this, but you'll need all this support from me. And that's not scalable in terms of management time. So, but there's that. Can you get people on that growth track where they're at the right level of stretch? And that is sometimes to say, yeah, I think you've got this. And actually, that's what makes people go away and think about how they're going to do it for themselves. So in the coaching world, it's very much a no-no to tell people how to do things. You should be trying to provoke them to think about how they're going to achieve it. And then they also can own the actions, knowing that they've come up with them, and they're building this kind of self-reliance. So, yeah, I think it's the typical helicopter parent in some way, in respects. If you stand at the playground and watch these parents who are hand-holding their children, who could be exploring and taking risks for themselves, but instead the parents are always there, that doesn't help. But yeah, it's a tricky one to get right, I think, in management. But knowing when to say, you've got this, you can do this, or actually, I'd not like you to do this on your own. I think you can do it. What do you think? What are you going to do? Rather than telling them what to do. Yeah,
I know you're right. You see it in parenting, don't you? When you've got to let your children, go and not handhold, literally.
Well, I think even at all stages in life, I mean, I still check up with things from my parents at the age of 43. So, I call my mum, talk about things that are going on. So I think there's, building a genuine relationship is one thing. And my mum actually is unfailingly kind in her approach to me. But trying to encourage people also to build that autonomy. So we don't want to over support. And I think we want to create a high challenge, high support environment. We mustn't over support. We've got to get the right level of support.
So killing with kindness there would be over supporting and not letting them grow and do the job.
Yeah, and in the end, it can become a bit of collusion, So in the end, if we support too much, we actually stop people achieving what their potential is, their highest level, because we're intruding on the process where they work it out for themselves. And therefore, we're holding them back through trying to help.
Yeah. And then thinking about the highest performers, some of which we talked about in the worlds of sport, business, and life. How are they using kindness to their advantage?
Well, there's a lot of those people, I would say, are quite focused on being on autonomy and achieving their success, in that they are pushing themselves forward. So I think that those people create a support team around them. So they're receiving of kindness from others, they're receiving of care. I think the highest performers maybe don't all do this, but they try to include kindness to themselves. But if you think about, I mean, working with Emma on this book, she's pretty disciplined. So her kindness to herself isn't going to the fridge every 5 minutes and getting another baguette. It's like she's finding rewards that are constructive. She's self-love that's constructive. And making sure that, we are pushing ourselves to that level. And I think the high performers do this. I think then one of the questions they ask in terms of higher purpose is this all just about me? And what am I doing to share that to others? And, that's a kind of a more purpose-driven approach to kindness. Like, what am I going to do with the overflow of what I've got? Where am I going to put that effort or that time? Like some sports people, like we've talked about Marcus Rashford, so he's got is footballing talent and reputation, and he's putting his spare time to work as well. And I mean, a lot of these high-performing sports people and business people do a great deal that you would never even know about. And they're investing that on a kind of more purpose-driven level as a kind of form of kindness to others, giving back.
Yeah. So what we're seeing is the highest performers, in their kindness to themselves, the things they're rewarding themselves with are actually kind. So that might involve a bit of tough love in not choosing the baguette, and choosing a different reward.
Yeah.
And they're also investing their spare time as well.
Yeah. I mean, I got myself a bike as a reward for succeeding in my work last year, and it's important to have those rewards and kindness things in place, but to make sure that they're good ones, good for us ones, I think are healthy. Some people, when they achieve something, they go out and have a massive binge, and sometimes even that's appropriate, isn't it? I mean, I think we talked about Derek Thomas winning the Tour de France and thinking, do you know what, I've trained as a highly professional athlete for the last 15 years. I've won the Tour de France, so probably at my peak, I'm going to actually enjoy this. I'm going to go and do all the things that people are going to ask me to do because of my success in this race, knowing that I've done 15 years of kind of Olympic training and everything else. So, even having a good old reckless party is sometimes not the wrong thing to do.
And in this balanced idea of being kind, where we need to manage it, how does our assertiveness help us in that?
Assertiveness is a great skill. Assertiveness and boundaries, these things come together, understanding where we are. There's this great book, I'm Okay, You're Okay, which is very, very thin and small, but very, very helpful. And it basically describes the different positions we can take with the people around us. So I'm okay, you're okay means we both believe in each other and think we can therefore both be assertive. If I were to take a position, I'm okay, you're not okay, I'm always going to be trying to help you or rescue you somehow. If I were to take a position, you're okay, I'm not okay, I might be the victim and always be needing help from you. And if I take a position, you're not okay, I'm not okay, we're in some kind of, collusive kind of downward spiral. So the assertiveness is this position that we treat everybody in life as if they are good enough, as if they are okay. And that means that we can act in a way that's adult with them, and that we're not needing to rescue and help them. Some people do need a bit of rescuing and help, but we're trying to bring them to a place where they're actually going to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining. So that's kind of assertiveness all fits in there. And I think, coming back to boundaries and projections and as an expression, strong fences make good neighbours. But, having the right boundaries between us also helps us to be in those positive, kind, assertive relationships.
In the book, Steve talks about when the happiness hormones aren't given a chance to recover, and actually we're getting instant gratification. Maybe it's social media, things popping up, likes, or maybe it's gaming, where we're always getting that new high score, unlocking trophies. Could even be fast food. What's happening in the brain there?
Well, we are a very hormonal animal, and actually, like our hormones are the most incredible thing. They're not the best well understood by the media or talked about. For example, we have a hormone that will allow us to stay at a balanced weight, and is what helps us to stay at a constant weight. But it's a very easily overridden hormone. So there are many, many hormones in the human body, but we can become addicted to certain ones of them, like adrenaline, for example. And, endorphins is another one that we can become addicted to. So adrenaline is what happens when we get excited by something. Endorphins is what maybe get after we've done exercise. Serotonin, another one that's a great positive chemical, feel good chemical that we get from connecting with other people, or oxytocin, the kind of love hormone. But there's so many of these hormones, and we can get addicted to them. And dopamine payoff from, for example, video games, social media is a classic example where, you know, if we get addicted, we actually put ourselves in a bad place. And so having those things in balance is important.
Yeah, it's helpful to get that in balance, because Steve talks about those hormones not giving them a chance to recover means if they're always stimulated.
So if we get used to a raised level,
we
forget what we like when we're in the balance level. And actually, that's what I'm saying about the hormone that's actually responsible for helping us stay at our own weight. As I say, it's very easily overridden. So, you know, that hormone, if we've got loads of other hormones flying around, that one's not really making its presence felt. So to let those levels drop off, and especially if we're stressed, if we've got cortisol, which is another hormone, our stress hormones flying, if we don't let those drop off, or if we don't let our dopamine response drop off, then we become used to an imbalanced life. And sometimes we need to take a bit of time out from things, or a retreat, or, you know, that's why people eat healthily for a season or avoid sugar or whatever they're doing. They're trying to sort out their internal hormones.
Yeah. And it's similar to what we were saying about when someone needs support. If they always find you're supporting them as a manager or even as a parent, then you're going to get used to that level of support and never grow into your role or your job or your life.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you remember when you were a kid, but like when you spend time away from your parents for the first few times, you're thinking, it's going to be okay. I mean, I come to a cub camp, and Mum's saying I should go, and Mum's probably a bit emotional as well. And I'm like 8 years old thinking, am I ever going to be okay sleeping in a tent in the middle of nowhere with these other children? What happens? You know, but actually this independence is great to breed, isn't it? And to challenge ourselves. And I think, again, for our kids or for ourselves to create that sense of independence and autonomy is good.
Yeah. And then coming to the habituators at the end of the chapter, what kind of habituators can help us in kindness, either to be more kind or to actually rein in our kindness in a way that helpfully supports others?
Well, Steve is really, like many coaches, often mentioning the fact, you know, when should we jump in and support? And I think it is really good, the check and challenge, to think, before we jump in and support someone, what is the best way I can help them to help themselves? Is it by helping them, or is there some other thing I can do? I remember when I was training in first aid, they would say, like, if someone's drowning in a canal, if you jump in, then they're likely just to grab you and you might both go down. You need to, even though it seems counterintuitive, you need to go and find a branch that you can dangle in and that they can then grab onto, and that if they were to pull it too hard, you can let go. So I do think this kind of whole coaching approach where we think, you know, what do you think is the best way that I can help you to help yourself? That approach is a really helpful macro level. And I think we can also think, how does being kind to myself impact on others? So, and this is a bit of private confession, Chris.
I'm ready.
I'm in the lockdown, 2 kids, my poor other half. There's loads of things going on. And nearly every day I disappear off for half an hour, 45 minutes of exercise. And at the weekend I went for several hours. And that could be perceived as not very helpful. But I'm helping myself first, being kind to myself, so that I am in a position to be kind all the rest of the time. And so I think, you know, thinking about these, what are the things we need to do to be our best selves, in our best version of ourselves? If it does border on the selfish, and maybe the 5-hour bike ride on Sunday morning is selfish, to counteract that, I leave really early, you know. But you know, if it does border on the selfish, then I think we need to check ourselves again. But being in a position where we can generously help others and having our life set up is really good. Another one, for example, is on our income. Like if we're running too much debt, or if our finances are too stretched, then we've always got this radar going off, always got this radar. Should we make a lifestyle adjustment so that we can not worry about our monthly outgoings, for example? I also dropped eating lunch. I found this was another area where I could go overdrawn. So I used to eat 3 large meals a day, and then lunch was a big social celebration or a business meeting, and became a way of coming back to hormones, gratifying myself. Having dropped that out, I feel a lot better. And so, you know, thinking about what's being kind to ourselves, it turns out that rewarding myself with a huge business lunch wasn't actually a kind thing to do. That was self-harming.
So we can actually check our the things that we're doing in our life to check whether they're really kind to ourselves. And there might be some things, as you say, like that 5-hour bike ride, maybe a little shorter one, that actually could help us be kind to ourselves, so that we have enough in the tank to be kind to others.
Yeah. I thought I've got a little poem up. Does anyone want a little poem? Who likes
a poem?
So that expression, strong fences makes good neighbours. That sounds weird, but there's a very interesting poem by Robert Frost called "The Mending Wall," and I thought I could just read it because I really love it. It's going to probably going to take the rest of the show.
That's fine. Take it away.
Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen ground swell under it, and spills the upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. The work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair, where they have left not one stone on a wall, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs, the gaps I mean. No one has seen them made or heard them made, but a spring mending time we find them there. I let my neighbour know beyond the hill, and on a day we meet to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go, to each the boulders that have fallen to each, and some are loaves and some so nearly balls, we have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side, it comes to a little more. There where it is, we do not need the wall. He is all pine and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines, I tell him. He only says good fences make good neighbours. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head. Why do they make good neighbours? Isn't it where there are cows? But here there are no cows. Before I build a wall, I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give offence. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly, and I'd rather he said it for himself. I see him there, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top, in each hand like an old stone savage-armed. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not only of woods and the shade of trees. He will not go behind his father, saying, and he likes having thoughts of it so well, he says again, good fences make good neighbours. And it's a very interesting poem, Chris. It's about, as you can get, two farmers walking to the top of a hill and basically walking along their stone wall where the spring has tossed down stones on either side. And as they're putting the wall back, he's kind of asking himself, why do I need these boundaries? Because, we haven't got cows. He's got an orchard. And I've got pine leaves or whatever, pine cones. But it's an interesting thought that the boundaries between us are actually important. And even in very close relationships like family or, kids, close work colleagues, partners, there are actually things that need a boundary. And
it's interesting. It's a good analogy for things having their own patch. You've got your patch, I've got mine, in terms of what you're working on and what I'm working on. We might come to the wall in the middle at times, and we will, working together. But we do need those boundaries. That's how we are neighbours, and not you trespassing in my garden. Yeah.
But some would say, aren't we all collective? And I guess it's actually quite deep. This poem is quite reviewed on a kind of deep philosophical and political level to say, should we have those boundaries, and where should they be? Well, I guess the question about where they should be is also massive, isn't it?
Yeah.
Should it just be?
Absolutely.
Should it be domestic, country, Europe? Should Texas not be part of the US? I mean, it's like philosophical and political questions, as well as with parents and kids and teams and everything else.
Yeah. And that question as well, you mentioned, how can I help you help yourself, is a really important one to think through. But that brings us to 2:00. That's all we've got time for today. Join us tomorrow, where we'd love to see you back here, 13:30 GMT. We're here every weekday in January. Thanks for joining.
Tomorrow it's all about potential latency, and we're looking forward to it. So thanks very much, Chris. See you all tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.